What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful individuals? It is League Unlock. We are back. Eric and Mark here with you guys for some little interesting time in the LCK. You know, it's a coin flip. Sometimes you have some good matches on Friday. Today, we at least were blessed with a nice middle tier matchup. We're talking DRX versus T1, and this is DRX that's competing for playoffs. They're competing for the top of the table. This is the beginning of the run for T1, getting back to contention, getting back to top 3. Got to get there with Gen G and with Dom 1. Kia, if you're playing like this, you're not getting in that conversation, guys.
Oh, man. You know, it's bittersweet, right? Because I do want to acknowledge that, you know what, overall, quality of the match, okay.
Yeah. Sorry,
That's
this isn't a Fiesta. This isn't a terrible Hanwha versus KT series.
Right. I'm just saying bittersweet about the result here, and especially bittersweet from my perspective, as everybody knows, as the T1 boy, as T1 fan here, trying to get some T1 victories on the board. Couldn't help the boys in this series. Wasn't enough. The bittersweet part is, yes, overall, when you're thinking about the LCK and you think about a team like DRX, this is good. This is good results for them to prove themselves, to keep up pace and everything else. Prove that they can stack up against the Gen Gs and push into that territory, right? But that was what we were expecting T1 to show us today, is that they were ready for that next step, ready to push against and get a challenge against the Gen Gs of the LCK. I can tell you what, some of the decision making coming through in this match, absolutely not of that level.
So let's get into each of these games. We start, of course, with game 1, and usually, if there's a T1 player playing Xayah, Teddy's coming in, but we finally get to see Gumiyoshi on that Xayah pick, and it's the same T1 lineup we've seen the last couple series that they've played, and this one really exploded in a dragon fight around 23 minutes, where you have Pyosik with a very clean Kindred ulti, and then eventually it's Bao cleaning up the fight because he's basically untouched the whole fight. It ends up being 5 kills over to DRX. They get Baron, and that's a snowball.
It was pretty clear from the way that T1 was playing the early game that what they wanted to do overall throughout the game is get a nice little stack of the dragons pretty quick and stomp on through with some power and not let off the gas. Well, the problem is at some point there, right before that team fight you were talking about, they decided, you know what, give over the dragon. Let's make a little push in the mid lane. And yeah, you got the mid turret, and sure, I know that opens up a lot of things strategically. It was not the right move in retrospect for T1. They needed to be able to get that dragon control. They go into that later dragon fight, and unfortunately for all of us, and unfortunately for the Demon King himself, Faker, an Orianna Shockwave doesn't quite work as well when it's done when someone's already in a Kindred ultimate. Not exactly the best decision.
Yeah, and you can give credit to Pyosik. It was a nice ulti. We know he used to be a Kindred one trick basically, but with this comp, once they have Baron with a Jace, Kai'Sa, Zoe, the siege is disgusting, and it took a little while. They needed another Baron, but the game was over from that team fight basically.
Right, and as we were saying, as soon as that pedal is off the metal for T1 in this game number 1, DRX absolutely had the momentum and was able to use it to the full power to get themselves the first match victory.
So we go into game 2. This time Faker gets the Azir. We have Elam's Olaf versus Pyosik's Kindred again and again. The early game, Pyosik definitely more active in the early game jungle. We had Kyria, Rel, and Gumiyoshi on the Samira, and again there's a big fight around the dragon that ends up being a 5-for-2, a quadra kill for Bao, and it's actually, there's a great ulti from Azir for Faker, but it doesn't matter. DRX still wins another dragon fight.
Yeah, an improvement on the ultimate choice in game number 2 from Faker compared to game 1.
Yep.
Feel like we'd see that bounce back, but yeah, it still was more or less in the DRX favor for pretty much the early to the mid game, still in game number 2.
This looked like it was going to be a 2-0. Like, it was a sizable lead in the favor of DRX. They have a Baron. They're pushing down mid lane. And then it's basically back-to-back fights, one of them against a Baron buffed up DRX squad that T1 wins, eventually nets them an Ocean Soul, and the game gets secured with a disgusting Rel engage by Kyria, and then the follow-up, again, Faker on the Azir. But this looked like it was dangerously close to a 2-0.
Yeah, it really was at a breaking point for T1. They managed to turn it around, and as you said, the big Rel ultimate does come through from Kyria in the later team fight, massively changing the fortunes of T1, changing the fortunes of this series as we head to that game number 3. Let's just get it over real quick. This was not the game number 3 you were looking for if you were a T1 fan.
It wasn't the draft you were looking for if you're a T1 fan. Everyone loves the Renekton pick, and
wasn't the draft you were looking for if you're a Zeus fan.
Guys, Renekton, it's an early game champion. You got to get him rolling. You got to win the lating phase. When you have 3 CS and 2 massive waves crashing against your turret as that Renekton, you need that farm to... The game's over for you. You're irrelevant if you can't get that, and Elam is nowhere in sight. In fact, he's going back to the base when Pyosik's Udyr comes in and dives Zeus, and they just abandoned this Renekton. What is Zeus supposed to do?
And this is a massive, massive mistake on Elam's fault on what the communication was during that exact moment for all the T1 players. It's simply unacceptable in game to let something like this happen, to understand, not only the foundation that, yes, you saved up to make sure you got this late pick Renekton coming through, which we can talk about that one as well. But even ignoring that, you've got the Renekton, as you said. This is as clean as day. Your silver players in solo queue understand that Renekton is a champion that's gonna get his priority. Needs to be that bully in the top side. Well, how are you gonna do that with 3 CS? You're not any bully, my man. You're a salamander almost at that point. You ain't no crocodile. That was a big problem. Was T1, and especially Elam's identifying and recognizing. Look, we're gonna split the map. Well, splitting the map when you got a Renekton top side and the Udyr's just going to go up, that's a bit of a problem, guys.
And they also, the trade they're getting, a little unlucky, but you got an Ocean Dragon and a Cloud Dragon. Okay, well, you're playing 4v5 the rest of the game. Congrats on those 2 dragon buffs.
You're right, exactly. And, as much as I was talking about the decision-making on passing up on the dragon, the second dragon in game number 1, this is completely different because, again, as we've said, you're getting these dragons at the cost of Renekton not being a champion at any point in this game. Literally outside, once he left Fountain from this game, it was doomed.
And apart from that, the snowball from topside obviously gets crazy out of control. Then you have the Seraphine mid lane for them, who just, as soon as you get any kind of lead with a champion like that, Faker hit a couple 3-man ultis, and you're like, it didn't hurt anyone. It didn't do anything.
That's the thing. It's like, not only was Seraphine and you got to give props to Solak, what he was able to do, definitely providing a strong level of performance into a hard matchup against, the storied Faker. But what was you're going to expect from Faker? Because again, this Seraphine not only was doing okay on her own, but when you get advantages elsewhere and she's able to help and support that and make sure that they're not dying, well, and it's over.
When the Orianna face checks into a bush, and
that's a separate discussion too.
That's really, things were already obviously out of control with Zeus getting so far put behind, and then there's the mid lane play where Faker wanders a little too close to a bush, gets hits a thresh hook, and Faker's super fed at that point, so him dying there before he can do an ulti or anything, that was basically the point T1 needed to win a fight to kind of reel the game back in. He gets caught out, it leads to Kyria dying, and then game's over. Done and dusted from there.
Right. As much as we, get upset and, get dramatic about what happened in the early game and everything with Zeus, you absolutely better believe that the ticket back into the game, right, was Faker's power, was where he was. That was their only chance. And even then, I don't even know if I'd quantify it as much as a 1% chance to find your way back into this match. Yep. Getting caught like that absolutely ends it. I really think that the important thing here, as much as we, are criticizing the decision making on T1 in this third game of the series, I really think the important thing for a lot of people to take away is a level of improvement from DRX. And this is not meant to lessen the blow about T1 losing. This is about an improvement for what DRX, what your expectations might have been at the beginning of the year and where they're growing to with these levels, a level of play. But more importantly, Pyosik, my man, got a little bit forgotten, right? After everybody left DRX. He was, the Will Smith meme in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, just standing, where is everybody? I'm the only one left here. And the problem was, everyone left, and people thought Pyosik was a really good young talent and all these other type of things. but everybody wanted Kyria. Everybody wanted to snag up their trophy. Pyosik's just here, and man, he is a major difference maker in the jungle.
I think Pyosik might be getting a message for 2022. T1, hey, your boy Kyria's here. Maybe you want to come slide on over.
Hey, I'd be all in favor of that one. Add in more of the young guns to the T1 squad.
So I know it's just one series. T1 was looking fine coming into this. You're not saying, okay, bring back Teddy, bring back Cuz, bring back everybody. But I think really what was highlighted in this series is still the jungle role. Okay, Zeus, sure, he's great. Put him in for Kana. That's something that you can hold the line there. But jungle still remains an issue. Does Cuz come back in? I feel like you got to give Wonder at least one series in the regular season to see what he can do, right?
I think the way it looks and how much time is left for spring, I think we're left with either Elam or Cuz is the more likely options. But I absolutely agree. I think that this is something that with Wonder and what he's been able to do through the solo queue ranks, through the academy system, you have to be able to give him an opportunity at this stage with these level of players. Look, with the way it's going for T1, you're going to be very much so stuck in this, where we were talking kind of the gatekeepers, middle of the road pack with this level
They're
of
lucky
performance.
there's 6 playoff teams this split.
Right, with this level of decision making, across in a lot of ways, that's what you're going to see. And if we're talking about getting to that next level, which is the expectation, which is the demand from the T1 organization and the higher ups, well, unlocking that next level, unfortunately, it seems like the risk is going to have to be on trying someone like Wonder in the jungle sooner rather than later.
4-5 record now for T1, which does put them in that 6th spot with KT earlier today beating Freddie Briand. They're up at 5-5, so they're behind KT even. And we figured, we knew that somebody after this series would be, knocking on that top 3. It's DRX, not T1 though.
Yeah, that is a surprise, and I think definitely time to give some credit over to the DRX boys and what they've been able to do and how they've been able to get this far. And again, as I said, not only is it Pyosik finding their way to get the big performances, everyone's well. Contributing. You're not winning that game number 3, and of course, yes, the big thing in the top side. I think Bao was absolutely a really strong point throughout the entirety of the series. I think he provided a steady level of play for them, which is obviously, again, very valuable things for a squad like DRX looking to keep climbing in the table.
And Kingen, sure, he got a lot of attention. He was handed the keys to the car in that early game. But how many times have we seen top laners get advantages like that and nothing come from it? They snowballed that into a victory, and he played great across all 3 games.
Last year, I wanted to see that, that step up, that next level of play from him in the LPL. And you saw glimpses, right? Very few glimpses of it, though. Seeing it a lot more often now with this DRX squad returning back to the LCK. Happy to see him finding this level of performances, especially in matches like this where it matters so much, his matchup against Zeus in the top side.
Yeah, I mean, Zeus is the guy we've been hyping up for so long, and deservedly so. Next up for DRX, they've got Afrika and then Hanwha Life. For T1, it's Sandbox and then Nongshim. So, if you're losing those games, T1, I don't know what to tell you.
I want the expectation here for T1 needs to be, I want some 2-0 performances from the squads, and I want to see some force. I want to see some power push through in these ones. Again, as we talk about this, where you're stacking up, and sure, Nongshim, these guys can provide more of a fight if you're sleeping on them. But absolutely, where T1 should be, what the expectation needs to be for these players, this organization, you got to be able to step it up and get by these squads.
Give me some more interesting pick bands. You got Faker. This guy can play anything. Zeus, solo queue star coming in. I don't want him on Renekton. Gnar games. Give him something fun to pick. It's just, it felt so stale, a lot of the picks in today's series from them.
Yeah, and then that's the second thing that we need to get at. Of course, it's taken some time, right? We've been very patient with the T1 the coaching staff and the change happening from the off season. Going back to Zephyr and whatnot. Still some questions as far as the draft is going on and the choices, really, right? And as far as not only what they're actually picking, but where they're picking it in relation in the draft and what you could be doing. Certainly, still a couple of question marks.
Probably more question marks after this series than what we had before for T1, but that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. As always, enjoy the games on the weekend. We'll be back to recap it all on Monday. We'll catch you on the flippity flip.